The Lightfall expansion is right around the corner. I wanted to give you guys my top 10 hunter exotics that I would recommend you pick up before the expansion comes out. Now, just as a side note, these are in no particular order. There's no ranking for these exotics, and these are just my personal picks, basing it off of the Armor 3.0 changes that are going to be coming, the changes to mods, and how we're going to be able to stun champions come Lightfall. So keep those things in mind when I talk about these exotics. So the first exotic I have on the list is the Dragon Shadow. This is mostly going to be used for PvP, but its perk, Wraith Metal Mail, dodging reloads all weapons and increased both movement and weapon handling speeds for a brief time. So pretty much it allows you to reload all your weapons automatically. So that means you do not need to rock the reload dodge on the hunter. So you can either rock the Gambler's dodge, so when you dodge near target, you get your melee back, or if you're on the Solar subclass, you can do the Radiant dodge, which, you know, allows you and anybody in a certain vicinity to become radiant to give you that bonus damage when you land the dodge. So again, you get that, and then increased movement. That means you get +5 or 50, quote unquote 50, to mobility. So if you're running a tier 5 mobility, it'll automatically make it tier 10 on the dodge. So keep that in mind. Plus all your weapons get increased handling, so it's like a mini quick draw, I guess is probably the best description for that. But honestly, I love this exotic over something like Stompies. The main reason, I guess the problem with Stompies now is that you get a massive, I guess, nerf to your airborne effectiveness. And as we know, I think we all hate AE. I think it's really stupid how they have it, you know, worked right now. And Stompies getting rid of a lot of AE and making you suffer while you're in mid-air engagements kind of stinks. So I'd honestly rather you opt for this exotic. I think there's a lot of benefits here, and there's a lot of build synergy as well for all 4 subclasses, and when Strand comes along, I think there's going to be a lot of benefits with that as well. Next up on the list, I have Gyrfalcon's Hauberk. Its perk, See Me, Feel Me. Your void weapons gain volatile rounds after you emerge from being invisible. When you are invisible and defeat a combatant while using a finisher, all of your weapons gain bonus damage. You and your nearby allies gain a reserve overshield and improved class ability regeneration. These reserve overshields can be deployed by using your class ability. So again, there are a lot of benefits here for your teammates, but the main thing here is whenever you come out of being invisible, your void weapons gain volatile rounds. This is going to be very important. Obviously, volatile rounds are getting a slight nerf come Lightfall, but honestly, I don't think it's going to matter, because if you didn't know, volatile rounds will cause anti-barrier champions to stun. So you can actually use volatile rounds to stun champions. I believe in the notes, they did not mention volatile abilities, so anything on the Titan with controlled demolition will not pop the anti-barrier shield, but void volatile rounds will be able to do that. So I think this exotic is going to come in handy, and honestly, the exotic is already very good to begin with. Even after the nerf, I still think a Gyrfalcon's build is going to be very viable. And I already made a build on this, so I'll just put that in the description if you want to check it out. Next up on the list, I have Liar's Handshake for all of you Arc 3.0 hunters. So its perk, Cross Counter. Using your Arc melee ability or being hit by a melee attack will allow you to follow up with an extremely powerful melee counterpunch that will heal you. So the main thing here is the extremely powerful counterpunch. Yes, as we know, Liar's Handshake, Wormgod Caress, all those melee exotics that give you a lot of bonuses got a slight nerf, but still using Combination Blow with the 1-2 punch shotgun and tractor cannon paired with the Liar's Handshake still allows you to do a lot of damage melee wise. Again, I've still seen it currently where you can drop mini bosses and bosses and just higher tier activity enemies very easily with the Liar's Handshake. There's a lot of benefits to this exotic on top of just having a very powerful melee counter. Obviously it helps, but again, pairing this with tractor cannon and 1-2 punch shotty is still extremely broken. So I do have a build for this one, and I have a build for pretty much almost every exotic, which is great. So I'll put a build for this in the description, but Liar's Handshake, I'd highly recommend you get this one if you're on the Arc Hunter. The next exotic on the list is the Assassin's Cowl Helmet. Honestly, a very underrated exotic. I just picked it back up last season. Season of the Plunder, just because of the benefits with this thing. So its perk, Vanishing Execution. Powered melee final blows grant invisibility and restore a portion of health and shields. Finishers and final blows against more powerful targets increase the duration of the invisibility and the amount of health and shields restored. So pretty much this thing allows you to go invisible on melee and finishers. Okay, so that's going to be the big thing here as well. And I've already made a build with this. I made a build for general activities and high-end activities, and let me tell you, pairing this with Reactive Pulse with the bonus of Finisher Bulwark, having that overshield while you perform a finisher is so useful in GMs. I've seen people run up to an unstoppable champion, try to finish them, and then they just melee you and you die instantaneously, right? We've seen it so many times in higher-end activities. That's just how It's just how the crap goes, as we know. So this exotic is very, very good, especially for high-end activities. I'd highly recommend you pick this thing up. I'll drop my build video in the description for this exotic, but honestly, on top of it being extremely effective on the arc subclass, especially paired with combination blow, allowing you to have that like really high melee damage, again, this works for every single subclass. So I've seen it used on stasis very, very easily. I've seen it used on the solar subclass very easily. Again, when Strand comes out, again, we might have something cool there with this exotic, but honestly, this thing is great for high-end activities. I'd highly, highly, highly recommend you pick this boy up. Next up, we're going to be talking about some boots, the Star Eater Scales. So its perk, Feast of Light. You gain additional super energy from orbs of power you pick up. While your super energy is full, picking up an orb of power overcharges your super, causing you to gain a burst of healing when cast and a bonus to your super damage. At maximum overcharge, you gain an overshield as well. So the main thing here is that once you have your super and you collect more orbs of power, your super is able to become even stronger. Obviously, we've seen it, last season, especially in King's Fall, people pairing this with the Gathering Storm Arc super, allowing it for very high DPS. But this also works extremely well for something like Blade Barrage and also the Triple Tether, the Mobius Quiver on the Void Hunter as well. So this exotic that I'm suggesting here is mostly a general exotic that allows for really great DPS, especially on bosses. So that's the reason I'm putting this one out here. It's very good in those situations. Highly recommend picking it up. It's going to be very good for those high-end activities, especially raids, just tanky enemies and bosses. The next exotic is going to be the Omnioculus. Again, this is chest armor. Its perk, Beyond the Veil. You gain a second smoke bomb charge and have damage resistance while you're invisible. When you make an ally invisible, they gain damage resistance while invisible, and you gain melee energy. So the main thing here is that you get 2 smoke bombs. When you make your teammates invisible, again, they gain damage resistance and you get melee energy. That's the big thing here. I've also seen this exotic used for a lot of solo activities. So if you're trying to do solo dungeons, solo master GM, whatever you want to call it, again, there's plenty of activities where you can solo with this thing. I also like this exotic, surprisingly enough, for the Crucible. Now, I know that the damage resistance portion is kind of useless in the Crucible, unfortunately, but being able to make your teammates invisible, being able to have, your smoke bombs a lot of the time, I think it's honestly still very, very beneficial. I paired this with, Dead Messenger and SMG because I'm an absolute scumbag in the Crucible right now. I really don't care. But again, this exotic comes with a lot of benefits, especially in higher tier activities, being able to go invisible, sneak past targets, etc., etc. Protect your teammates. Like I said, a lot of invisibility here. The next one on the list is the Athrys Embrace exotic gauntlets. Its perk, Skittering Stinger. Weighted Knife gains a second bounce, rapid precision hits with weapons grant Weighted Knife a significant damage bonus, and the ability to stun unshielded combatants for a short time, aka the empowered Weighted Knife can stun unstoppable champions. So again, there's a couple of things here, both PvE and PvP wise. PvE wise, again, being able to stun unstoppable champions is going to be good in general, considering, like I said, we're getting a bunch of changes to how we're going to be able to stun champions come Lightfall. So these exotics might come in handy, but on the PvP side, oh, this thing is just so stupid, man. It's actually ridiculous how crazy this exotic is. So pretty much, you can bounce this knife, the weighted knife, off a wall and just hit somebody in the toe. As long as you have the the damage bonus with the weighted knife, you can kill somebody with a body shot with this knife. So again, it can be direct. You can bounce it off the wall. I've seen this thing auto track after you bounce it off of like 2 walls. It's basically the almost like the auto tracking weighted knife. Like, it says gains the second bounce, but I've seen it bounce more than 2 times. It's just absolutely ridiculous. So I'd recommend picking up this exotic. Whether you want to use it for PvP or PvE, definitely pick this thing up. Now, the next exotic I want to talk about is kind of interesting. The Bombardiers. These are leg armor. So, its perk, Parting Gift. Dodging leaves behind an explosive that detonates after a short delay, damaging targets around it and creating a secondary effect based on the subclass energy type. So if you're on an arc subclass, it'll blind targets. If you're on a solar subclass, it'll scorch targets. If you're on a void subclass, it'll suppress targets. And if you're on stasis, it will slow targets. Now, why is this important, David? Because right now, all these effects don't really mean anything right now. The cool thing is, come Lightfall, blinding will be able to stun unstoppable champions. Ignition will be able to stun unstoppable champions. Yes, I know the bomb will scorch targets, but again, you can always apply more scorch stacks to ignite a target. Again, that'll do that. And suppression will be able to stun overload champions, and slow will be able to stun overload champions. So With the addition of Strand, again, we'll probably get another thing here. I have no idea what it'll do, but I have a feeling it'll be cool. I just think this exotic has a lot of potential when it comes to stunning champions of pretty much every variety here. You have a lot of options, and it's all based on subclass, so I think it's going to be pretty interesting how this is going to work out. The next exotic I want to talk about is the Renewal Grasps. Its perk, Depths of Dustfield. Your Dustfield grenades have a much larger effect radius. Allies inside the Dustfield take reduced damage, and targets inside the area deal reduced damage. So on top of, obviously, the Dustfield grenade being able to slow targets and freeze targets inside of its radius, it's bigger. You gain damage resistance, your teammates do. If you have the improved version of Dustfield, where it spawns a stasis crystal, you can put on the fragment that allows for even more damage resistance. Now, why am I even talking about this? The main reason is because we are getting changes to how resilience works at tier 10 come Lightfall. We're not getting a 40% damage resistance anymore. We're only getting 30%. Granted, I know for myself, I'm still going to be maxing out resilience for every activity. Unless there's some crazy bonus to the other statistics, I'm still going to be rocking resilience. So again, I'm just keeping that in mind. I already dropped a build video with Renewal Grasps as well. Being able to drop a lot of grenades, freeze and slow a bunch of targets, being able to have your dodge back faster, helping out your teammates, gaining damage resistance. Again, this does have a lot of benefits to it, but again, it's on this list because of multiple reasons. Now, the last exotic on this list, and as much as I despise this exotic, the Wormhusk Crown, it has to be on this list, mostly for PvP. Its perk, Burning Souls. Dodging gives a small health and shield bump. So pretty much when you dodge, you gain health back. So if you're hurt in the Crucible, being able to dodge, get your health back, disengage, pop a healing grenade, get your, max shields back or whatever. Again, that's why this exotic is really good. It's the panic exotic. It's always been the panic exotic. I really don't like it. Honestly, I have not used this thing since it pretty much came out during the Warmind expansion. I used it, and I'm just like, I like Dragon Shadow better. I like Stompies better. At the time, obviously, I still love the Dragon Shadow. But again, I'm putting this on this list for the people who want to get into PvP. It's a very forgiving exotic. I understand that, like, oh, it's a cheese. Like, why aren't you using it? It'll just, like, help out your KD, whatever. I don't know. There's so many other benefits with something like the Dragon Shadow that I really enjoy. But again, this exotic is good. I'd highly recommend picking it up if you want to have more survivability in something like the Crucible. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my personal top 10 hunter exotics that you need to pick up for Lightfall drops. Again, like I mentioned, this is just my personal list. There's no rankings to this. And again, if you have any other exotics that you think should have been on this list, put those in the comments. There are plenty of great exotics. These are just the top ones that I recommend you pick up while we still have time before Lightfall drops. If you like what you saw, be sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and then turn on the bell next to notifications so you don't miss out on another one of these videos. If you didn't know, we stream 3 days a week here on YouTube. We're not on Twitch, we're here on YouTube. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Friday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Again, we mainly are playing Destiny 2. I'm doing stuff with the community most of the time, whether it's, Grandmaster Nightfall carries, dungeon carries, just PvP, just having fun in the Crucible, attempting to have fun in the Crucible, I should say. But again, got plenty of people in there. If you want to hop in, play some activities, do dungeon runs, whatever, just hop in the live stream, say, hey, can I jump in? I'll say, absolutely. And if you want to be proactive, join my Discord, because that's where we're going to be chatting. And we also have multiple other topics in there as well, like PC tech, anime, and more. Lastly, if you didn't know, we hit YouTube Partner, which has given us a lot of exclusive things here on the channel. One of those things being memberships. If you don't know what a membership is, it is essentially like a Twitch subscription. Again, you're going to get access to the emotes, the monthly badges, and a bunch of other stuff here on the channel. So if you like the content and you want more details about joining as a member, again, all you have to do is press the join button next to subscribe, and that'll give you all the details you need. But anyway, guys, that's the end of the video. Catch you in the next one. Cheers.